The cold, it wasn't just a season, it was a living thing. It breathed, it whispered, it crept under the skin and into the heart until even hope froze solid. The wind screamed across the Sierra peaks, carrying the scent of pine and death. Snow fell in endless sheets, burying the trail, swallowing the world whole. In that storm, a woman stumbled through the white, her face pale, her hands raw and trembling. Her name was Eliza Walsh, and she had been alone for 3 days. Her husband was gone. Her food was gone. Her fire had died. And now, the last flicker of her strength was slipping away. She fell to her knees, the snow rising to her waist, her breath coming in shuddering gasps. Around her, the wilderness stretched silent and merciless, an ocean of ice and grief. She hadn't always been a ghost wandering the mountains. Once, she had been full of laughter, a bright-eyed woman who believed in love, in promises, in the dream of a better life. Arthur Vance had been that dream, once tall, confident, charming, the kind of man who could sell hope with a single smile. When he asked her to follow him west, she thought she was following her future. They rode into the wilderness with stars in their eyes, chasing gold, chasing freedom, chasing something neither of them truly understood. But when the snow came early, when the rivers froze and the food ran low, Arthur's charm turned cold. His love turned sharp. And one morning, she woke to find the fire dead and his tracks leading away. He had taken the mule, the rifle, the last of the rations. He had left her there to die in the silence, beneath a sky that felt too wide to hold mercy. For 2 days, Eliza followed his trail, whispering his name through the blizzard until her voice cracked and faded. Her body burned with hunger, her feet bled inside her boots. The snow swallowed her prints almost as soon as she made them, erasing her from the earth. On the 3rd day, the storm grew worse, white swallowing white, sound swallowed by wind. She clutched her small silver locket, her mother's, and prayed, though she no longer believed anyone was listening. When she finally collapsed against a fallen pine, her body shaking violently, her breath slowed, her eyes fluttered, and the world dimmed into grey. She thought perhaps this was the end, quiet, painless, final. But destiny had other plans. Through the curtain of snow came a figure tall, broad, wrapped in furs. His face was half hidden beneath a frost-crusted beard, his eyes dark and watchful. Jonah Cuncaid had lived in the wilderness so long that the world had forgotten his name, but the mountains had not. He was a trapper, a loner, a man shaped by loss. When he saw her lying there, half buried in snow, he thought she was dead. But then a twitch, a breath, a spark. He lifted her gently, wrapped her in his coat, and carried her through the storm toward the faint smoke of his cabin on the ridge. For 3 days, she lay between life and death. Fever took her. She whispered names, fragments of memories, the ghost of a life she'd lost. Jonah stayed by her side, tending the fire, melting snow for water, wrapping her in furs. When she finally woke, her voice was a whisper. "Where am I?" He didn't answer at first. He only handed her a cup of hot broth, watching as she drank. "Alive," he said finally. That's where. As the days passed, her strength returned. The storm outside raged for weeks, but inside the small cabin, something gentle began to stir. Eliza spoke little at first, her voice quiet, careful, as if afraid of breaking the silence that kept them safe. Jonah was a man of few words, but his silence was not cruel. It was patient. She learned he had once had a wife, a child, both gone now, lost to sickness and time. The mountains had taken everything from him, and in that shared emptiness, they began to find something like peace. She helped him with his traps, learned to split kindling, to mend torn pelts. At night, they sat by the fire, the storm howling outside while the light flickered over their faces. Sometimes she would hum, softly, a tune from her childhood, and Jonah would listen with a stillness that said more than words ever could. There were no confessions, no declarations, only the slow healing of two broken souls learning how to live again. But the past has a way of finding its way through the snow. One morning, as the storm cleared and the sky burned pale blue, Jonah spotted movement down the valley. Riders, 6 men on horseback, cutting through the frozen trees. He lifted his rifle, eyes narrowing. He recognized the lead rider immediately. Arthur Vance, the man who had abandoned her, now returned, drawn not by guilt, but by greed. Jonah's land hid something valuable, a gold claim buried beneath the ice, a secret Arthur had learned before he fled, and now he wanted it, whatever the cost. By the time the men reached the cabin, the light was dying. Arthur dismounted, eyes burning when he saw Eliza alive. "You should have stayed in the snow," he sneered. His voice dripped with venom and disbelief. "You always were too stubborn to die." Jonah stepped forward, calm but deadly. "You left her," he said quietly. "Now you leave this mountain." Arthur laughed, the kind of laugh that only evil men know, the kind that hides fear behind arrogance. Then he drew his gun. What followed was chaos. The cabin shook with the sound of gunfire, shattering glass and splintered wood. Jonah moved like a man who'd fought the wilderness itself, every shot measured, every step deliberate. Eliza, trembling but resolute, grabbed the spare rifle and fired through the smoke. The fight was quick, brutal, final. When it ended, Arthur lay on the floor, snow melting into the blood at his feet. His eyes were open, but his greed, the thing that had driven him, was gone forever. Outside, the world had gone still again. The storm had passed. The stars came out one by one, bright against the black sky. Jonah stood at the doorway, the wind brushing his face, the cold biting his lungs. Eliza stepped beside him, her hand finding his without a word. The snow reflected the dawn, soft and golden, as if the mountains themselves were blessing what remained. They buried Arthur beneath the pines, said nothing, and watched the sun climb over the ridge. Days became weeks. The thaw came. Rivers broke free of ice, the air filled with the scent of pine and soil. Eliza planted seeds outside the cabin, small things, fragile but alive. Jonah repaired the roof, the quiet rhythm of his work echoing through the valley. Life, in its quiet, stubborn way, returned. Sometimes, travelers passing through the lower trails would speak of seeing smoke far up in the mountains, of a man and a woman living where no one should, of laughter echoing through the trees. Some said they left one spring, heading south to find a valley of their own. Others swore the cabin still stands, old, quiet, its chimney leaning, its hearth cold but peaceful. But those who knew their story, those who understood, would tell it this way. Eliza Walsh did not die in those mountains. She was reborn there, in the silence of snow, in the wreckage of love, in the arms of a man who asked for nothing. The wilderness had taken everything from her, but it had given her back herself. She had survived the storm, survived betrayal, survived the worst kind of loneliness. And in the end, she had found something even rarer than gold, peace. Because survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about finding a reason to keep breathing when the world tells you not to.